Good evening, everyone. I'm Mehreen, and I work as an exhibitions program manager at the Museum of Art and Photography. Thank you for joining us for this evening's program. This event is a concluding session for the two-day gathering that MAP and the archives at NCBS hosted called Archiving Like a Feminist, where artists, archivists, academics, and artists, forgot the most important one in my context, came together to think of what a feminist archival practice could look like. Before we enter into the evening's program, I would like to invite Professor L.S. Shashidhara, Center Director at NCBS, to offer his words, and then I'll do a brief introduction for Shruthi and we'll step into the performance.
Thank you, Mehreen. First, thanks to MAP, Museum of Art and Photography, for joining hands with the NCBS for organizing this, and all the people at archives, Venkat, Deepika, Anjali, and others, and Geeta, for putting this together. It's a fantastic two-day meeting, although I should not, because I was not witness to yesterday's one. Today morning I had a fantastic time, listening to all the talks by 6 of the archivists. One of them says that she claimed not an archivist, but she spoke more about fantastic way of archiving events and narratives and history. So without much ado, my job is only to welcome you all on behalf of organizers, both NCBS and MAP. And we'll have more such events, I'm sure, with all your support. And I'm very happy seeing the gathering, both from within the campus and outside the campus, and welcome you all. And those who have come for the first time to our campus, please do visit our facilities, not just archives and other facilities too. And we are, welcome again if you want to spend more time. We also have, other kind of initiatives like Scholars in Residence, and we also want to restart. I was just talking to Teju, the Artists in Residence program. So when any of you are interested, we can discuss about that, and also suggest names. Those who are interested, to sort of have some kind of an activity here among the scientists who also have some interest beyond science and beyond the four walls of labs, and also those who are interested to generally interact with young people and bring them out of their mobile phones. Thank you very much.
Today's concert, hearing Herstories singing Sisterhood, performing the Feminist Archive by Shruthi Veena Vishwanath, retrieves songs of women bhakti poets and brings them alive for our contemporary times. It is only a fitting way to end the 2 days of conversation we've had to now witness a practitioner who works with a version of an archive and through it tell important stories for our times. To briefly introduce Shruthi Veena Vishwanath is a musician whose practice is rooted in community, feminism, and the decolonization of voice. Classically trained for 2 decades, she then spent another decade unschooling through mystic music traditions, Abhang, Nirguni, Vachana, Bhaul, Sufi, and other forms from across South Asia. Her work draws from oral traditions of Bhakti and Sufi music, passed down through centuries, and seeks to reimagine and reclaim voices that have been marginalized by dominant histories and hegemonies. Shruthi has extensively researched and composed music based on the works of women Warkari poets from Maharashtra as well as female poets from across South Asia. She has contextualized, curated, and performed music for a wide range of audiences, world-renowned festivals and venues, leading universities and community and grassroots organizations. Through her community music initiative, Music in the Machan, she reimagines music education and practice as a space rooted in healing, shared context, and deep respect for grassroots communities. Thank you, Shruthi, so much for joining us in Bangalore, and over to you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you, NCBS and MAP, for having me at this as witness also to this program. I think the conversations that have been in the last 1.5 days have enriched me tremendously. And so now I'm left with I was telling Tejaswini that I'm left with being the public face of this conference in a way, which is not an easy task. And I don't claim to, that I will first say I cannot do that, but I will say that I will try to do what I can, and I have been trying. So I would like to start off by saying that today's concert draws a lot from oral traditions, and I have tried to acknowledge most names and sources, and while a lot of the oral tradition practices that I sing about, I also sing with the blessings of a certain, say, songkeeper from the community. There are times when that may not be so, or where I may be remiss. I may not have mentioned everyone who I need to mention. But again, one tries. Specifically for today's songs, I usually don't make a song list, but specifically for today's songs, I'd like to thank a few people. The poets are Barbara McCaffey, Krishnaveni Suryanarayan, Zanabai, Aka Mahadevi, Rupa Bai, and an unknown composer in Afghani, but we've got the song from Ustad Farida Mawash. And the other people are the song keepers and the practitioners who I have then sourced the songs through. And I'm very grateful to a few people in part of the collective music in the Machan from the Kabir Festival of Mumbai, and many other collectives who have supported work over the years. So I'd like to start with the question of why. Why do I do this? I think, like many artists, I think the cliched answer is because I am trying to find out who I am. And that answer is not as easy as one might think. I think the metaphor over here is I find myself living out of a suitcase even now, but I think I've also been living between many worlds for as long as I could remember. And it's one might say that there is privilege in some ways, and there is very much so. But there's also a big struggle to say, okay, so who am I? What is my language, for instance? None of the songs today are written by me, and there's a reason for that. I think, and I've been taught to think in English, but the singing idiom that I sing in is very desi, so to speak. And so I'm going to challenge this a little bit. And the first song that I want to offer today is actually by a Canadian singer-songwriter and community song leader named Barbara McCaffey. And I learned this song through one of these song circles that emerged during the COVID era, when we started having Zoom meetings and meeting across the world, and songkeepers from here and there madly began exchanging songs. What I do want to point out, though, and the reason I'm opening with this song tonight is Barbara invites us to listen to the deeper story, the story within the story. And I feel like, having engaged with people who are engaging with archives or grappling with questions, I think that's the invitation I want to offer to everyone, to listen to the deeper story beyond the headlines, to see what connections one can forge. There are songs in the soil and the rivers and trees, and the ears of your heart can hear them. And some come alive in the meeting of eyes when you take the time to see them. There are songs in the soil and the rivers and trees, and the ears of your heart can hear them. and some come alive in the meeting of eyes when you take the time to see them. I will listen to the deeper story. I will see how life's gonna move in me. I will listen to the deeper story. I will see how life's gonna move in me. There are songs in my bones, won't leave me alone, calling for creation, and tunes that ride on a whispering wind, seeking incarnation. There are songs in my bones, won't leave me alone, calling for creation, and tunes that ride on a whispering wind, seeking incarnation. I will listen to the deeper story. I will see how life's gonna move in me. I will listen to the deeper story. I will see how life's gonna move in me. There are songs that ride on the dancing tides that swirl through all the ocean, and some that dream in the bitter sea that grief will set in motion. There are songs that ride on the dancing tides that swirl through all the ocean, and some that dream in the bitter sea that grief will set in motion. I will listen to the deeper story. I will see how life's gonna move in me. I will listen to the deeper story. I will see how life's gonna move in me. I will listen to the deeper story. I will see how life's gonna move in me. So that's my grandmother, Krishnaveni Suryanarayan. And as a kid, I learned Carnatic music. That's the tradition I was trained in. And every year I had this annual performance somewhere. And one of the things, if anyone knows the Carnatic music world, you know how things are curated. There's like a few light pieces at the end. And somehow, when I was, I think, 11 or 12 or 13, I realized that my grandmother's songs could be part of it. I would always sing it at the end of a concert because she had written some songs. I never quite sang it in the main section. I don't know why. Now I feel like if I had to go and relive my journey as a Carnatic musician, which I do not want to, I would certainly sing it as a main song and spend 45 minutes on the song rather than the cursory 7 minutes. But it made me wonder, and it makes me wonder, how many of our mothers have written songs, how many of our grandmothers have written songs, how many songs exist in our communities, how many of us have hummed a song when we were little. I used to make, to mug up my history dates, I would make little songs out of it. But how many composers do we have within our midst who we haven't acknowledged? And later on, when I was in fact speaking with a friend and somebody known to many people in the room, Sumna Chandrasekhar, who's a Ghatam artist, she said actually there's many people who compose like this, but the women really never take themselves seriously, usually, nor do the families take them seriously. So I sing this next one as an ode to the songs that exist within our midst from our families and our communities and our grandmothers that have never made it to a stage with lights like this, perhaps. Clearly, like, as you heard from that 2-minute introduction, I didn't want to stick around in the Carnatic music world, and there was a lot of unschooling that I volunteered myself to, and a lot of unschooling that involuntarily happened. And that's where I come to finding Zanabai. And so I started singing like many people do, but this was before Kabir was really like cool. It was just, Kabir was then like, cool? Like that. So I started singing Kabir, and I started singing abhangs from my childhood, Tukaram, Jnaneshwar, and I was like, I have found it. This is it. This is who I want to be. I was very, very smug. And then I was invited to this women's special Sufi music concert. Like you have March 8th celebrations, we have around the same time, it was March 9th, March 10th, something like that. And I went there and I sang, and I was on the plane back, and I happened to look at my set list, and I was like, okay, there's Kabir, there is Gorakhnath, there is Jnanoba, there is Eknath, there is Bulle Shah. But I was at a women's special conference, and nobody, like, I had not questioned it. Nobody around me questioned it. It was enough for them that I was there. They got their headline shots. And so that's when I found Zani. And a friend told me, a very dear friend told me, I have a British scholar. She's written a thesis on the women Varkaris. Her name is Jackie Docks. And I'm like, in my head, I didn't say it to him. I said, what can a British woman teach me about the Varkari Sampradaya? I have grown up in it. But boy, was I wrong. Because I realized that then I actually sat and counted the songs of the women that I sang. And it ended on the fingers of one hand. Literally. There was one token Kanho Patra that I had learned, one Muktabai, one Zanabai, one Meera, because you all know Meera. And it ended. That was it. And I'm like, this cannot possibly be. And I said, I identify as this feminist practitioner. What am I doing? Where are the women? And these two questions somehow came at the same time. And that's when I found Zanabai. And I'm very grateful to the India Foundation for the Arts, Menka and Darshana here in this room. At that time, they saw what I was trying to do, and the IFA gave me an arts practice grant, which sustained me for a year. And it was to inquire into why the women aren't sung in the bhakti tradition, and they aren't sung. Jackie had researched that in 2004 and written a doctoral thesis on it. I began researching into 2016, and I would go out onto the field and ask people, because I want to find tunes. For me, all of these oral histories are alive when they are sung. They were all there in text. I had the Sakala Sant Gatha in my house since I was a little child, like heavy volumes. But I was like, do you sing? And then they would be like, ho ho, we sing, absolutely, and break out into song. And at the end, the signature would be Eka Janardani or Nama Mani. And I would say, Nai Dada, this is Namdev or this is Eknath. Then they were like, Tumi kashala farak bhagta. I said, if you're not seeing the difference between men and women, why do you sing the women? And then you can then you can say, but no, like nobody was singing it. So this at the time started as a project. Later on became, it's really life's work, and I think should be many people's work and many lifetimes' work. It's not just, shouldn't start and end at me. But yeah, Zanabai. Zanabai is probably my favorite poetess in the canon. My favorite poet actually of all time. A 13th century person, possibly Dalit. We don't know. There are conflicting sources about that, but she signs as Dasi Zani, which is a very clear sign. And she worked as a housemaid, because she signs as that, the Dasi Zani, and she worked as a housemaid in Namdev's house, doing all the chores, all the dhuna, all the bhandi, all the washing of clothes and the vessels, and she bathed, we know, down the ghats, because she said tulsi se bani zani ukalita veni. So it seems like she's bathing downstream, not in the regular ghat, because she's bathing in the forests of tulsi. Anyway, so Zanabai, Zanabai captured me. Like she got my heart from her very first poem, and I would like to definitely share a few. This is quite an iconic one of hers. In this one she says, "Doitsa padar ala khandyavari, bharल्या bazari zain mi." The padar has slipped onto my shoulder, the veil has dropped, but I don't give a damn. I'll go to the bazaar. हाती घेईन टाळ खांद्यावरी वीणा, आता माझं मना कोण करी. In one hand I'll take the tal, in the other hand the veena. Who dares to stop me now? पंढरीच्या पेठे मांडियले पाल मन गटावर तेल घाला तुम्ही. In the marketplace of Pandharpur, I will set up my trade, pour oil on this mangat. Now mangat has two possible connotations. Mangat in colloquial Marathi means wrist, which means that she could possibly be asking someone to anoint her with oil. But mangat in Jackie's translations took on a different meaning, because Jackie, she was an outsider to the tradition, so she went asking people. And she was told that mangat was a slur in the 13th century. And so ya mangatawa tel ghala tumi could very well be her hurling back that slur and reclaiming it. Zani म्हणे देवा मी झाले येसवा, निघाले रे केशवा घर तुझे. Zani says, I have become your whore Keshava. I come now, I set out now for your home. डोईचा पदर आला खांद्यावरी, डोईचा पदर आला खांद्यावरी, डोईचा पदर आला खांद्यावरी, डोईचा पदर आला खांद्यावरी. भरल्या बाजारी जाईन मी, भरल्या बाजारी जाईन मी, भरल्या बाजारी जाईन मी, भरल्या बाजारी जाईन मी. डोईचा पदर आला खांद्यावरी, डोईचा पदर आला खांद्यावरी, डोईचा पदर. हाती घेईन टाळ खांद्यावरी वीणा, हाती घेईन टाळ खांद्यावरी वीणा. आता माझं मना कोण करी, आता माझं मना कोण करी. डोईचा पदर आला खांद्यावरी, डोईचा पदर आला खांद्यावरी, डोईचा पदर. पंढरीच्या पेठे मांडियले पाल, पंढरीच्या पेठे मांडियले पाल. मनगटावर तेल घाला तुम्ही, मनगटावर तेल घाला तुम्ही, मनगटावर तेल घाला तुम्ही, मनगटावर तेल घाला तुम्ही. जनी म्हणे देवा, डोईचा पदर आला खांद्यावरी, डोईचा thao padar, doi thao padar, doi thao padar. Ala khandya wari. At the time that I would like to, I wouldn't want to say I composed the tune because it really came to me. Zani only, all of these tunes only come when there's grace. I am not forced a single tune. It's like, Doi Sapadar, I read the poem for the very first time because people ask, what's your process? So I'd like to say that there is, like, I'll write a paper on it sometime maybe. I'll give it legitimacy. But there's a lot of sitting with the poems, but Doi Sapadar really happened with grace. I was sitting in a Shivneri between Pune and Bombay, and there's that little section that comes near Lonavala where there's typically a traffic jam. Anyone who's done the Bombay-Pune circuit will know. So that turn was happening, and I read the translation first. I'm like, what? Because I never encountered the poem before. And then the poem sang itself. And it's a poem that's been translated extensively. Jerry Pinto and Neela Bhagwat have done a version. There's earlier versions as well. Jackie Dox has done a version. I've done a version. But at that time, I didn't know anyone else was singing it. And I felt it was important to sing it. There's also the truth that, and I kind of declared this when I was doing the project itself. I said in 5 years, if I am still the only person singing the women Vadkaris and it's my name on the headlines, then I said I'll have been a failure. I really mean it because at the end of the day, my adopted tongue is Marathi, but my native tongue, my ancestral tongue is in Marathi. I am a Puneri, but am I a Puneri? All of these questions come. The Varkaris have never treated me as anything other than their own from the very beginning, since when I was a little kid and going to Nabhang Mandali. But one wonders. And so I've sung this in Pandharpur itself. I've sung this in small and big Varkari temples. It's gone out into the communities recorded it. Oh, amala far changla vata. I sang this in Zanabai's birthplace. And I sang this with a lot of trepidation because I asked him, I said, you sing this? He said, amala maiti hai. We know that the poem exists, but we don't really sing it. I said, you have, because I said, do you have a tune? And they didn't have a tune. And then I sang it, and then okay, now we'll sing it. It was recorded, and it's gone. There are many songs of Zanabai, of Kanho, of Soira, of Muktabai that have then gone back into the community with these sharings, and for that I'm especially grateful. And I have to say, over there, nobody asks if we can record, and nobody gives a consent form. But I'm truly grateful for that. I think when in communities, when the phone is taken out and your words are being sung, especially from within the community, are recorded, that I find that there's no. That's the most wholehearted sign of acceptance, and I've been extremely grateful for that. So that's my story of Zanabai. She has a few other poems which we will maybe do this time later. But it brings me back to finding my own tongue, which is actually Kannada, at least as far as mother and father tongue go. And I can't read, so I know that you all are seeing an Akka Mahadevi poem. I don't have any knowledge of the script myself. And so even over there, I feel like I'm an imposter. I speak the language, but I can't read and write it. And so I've always had a very contentious equation with the language. But in these words, somehow I again found a little bit of me. And this is from project that Sylvia Heinz, who's a German musician, and I did, when we realized that Hildegard von Bingen, who is a German mystic, and Akka Mahadevi, we realized that both of them walked the planet at the same time. And we're like, oh my God, like maybe they hadn't met, they may not have met in those times, but we can perhaps do something. And so there was a joint piece that we did where Sylvia performed a little bit of Hildegard, and I performed a poem of Akka's. And we reimagined what it would be like for the two voices to meet. The song that I will sing of Akka's isn't that, but it's a very beautiful one, and I think one of the first compositions in Kannada that I decided I wanted to sing, because it was a language that I'd always had a fraught relationship with, and this was a poem of trust and great love, because she says that Hasivadode bhikshannagaluntu. If you're hungry, there will be bhikshe. Trishayadode kere bavigaluntu. It's there. Like there's no doubt in her mind that you will be fed, you will be given water when the time is right, and when you're in need of rest, there'll be an old temple along the way. But for the soul, she says, for the soul, O Chenna Mallikarjunayya, there's just you. Hasivadode bhikshannagaluntu. Hasivadode bhikshannagaluntu. Trishayadode Trishayadode kere bavigaluntu. Trishayadode kere bavigaluntu. Hasivadode bhikshannagaluntu. Hasivadode bhikshannagaluntu. Shayanake Shayanake halude gunagaluntu. Hasivadode bhikshannagaluntu. Hasivadode bhikshannagaluntu. Atma sangatake Chenna Mallikarjuna. Chenna Mallikarjuna. Chenna Mallikarjuna. Neenuntu Hasivadode bhikshannagaluntu. Hasivadode bhikshannagaluntu. Hasivadode bhikshannagaluntu. Hasivadode bhikshannagaluntu. Vachanas aren't typically sung. I mean, they weren't traditionally sung. They were utterances. It's actually quite a late 19th early 20th century thing that vachanas have been set to tune in a way. But I also wanted to find and sing poetry that reflected the stance that I have in terms of worldview, in terms of an anti-caste lens, in terms of a feminist lens, and I found that vachanas reflected it. So I continue to sing these poems. So when I have shared these stories of Zanabai, of Akka Mahadevi, one of the most curious, one of the most heartfelt questions came from a person who I consider my teacher actually, and he's sitting sort of in the center with the cap, and his name is Prahlad Singh Tipanyaji. Many of you all in the room probably know him. And he's a stalwart of Kabir and probably the living, beating heart of Kabir in India today. And he said, "Beti, aap kyun ga rahe ho?" And unlike questions of why are you singing, actually the tone was very different. There was a curiosity. And so I went on to a big ramble about how, as a woman, I said it's important that, he said, because what is, like, Kabir bhi yahi bolte, yahi baat kehte hain. Kabir also says the same thing. I said, yes, bilkul. Like, Kabir says the same thing as Zanabai, who says the same thing as, like, at the core of it, everything is the same. Fir kyun ga rahe ho? And so then I spoke to him, and we had a long conversation on why I sing. And that evening we were both performing at the Kabir Festival of Bombay in this venue in South Bombay. And I was going first and then he was going. And so I sang, I did my set and I came out. And then he comes and he says, हमारी बेटी श्रुति ने ये गाया था, मालवा में भी ऐसी महिला संत है, and एक है रूपाबाई. And he opened with a Rupabai poem. And that day, I think many things shifted in the room. His son, who's also a dear friend of mine, Ajay Bhaiya, he said, no, aap kyun, like, and later on I realized why he was trying to stop his father, because the poem is about, that particular Rupabai poem that Prahlad sang that day, is about bidi cigarette mat khao and daru mat piyo, which, as you can imagine, in South Bombay is quite like. But he's like, if you stop me from singing Rupa Bai, he said, then you have not seen Kabir. So it became a confrontation on stage, a very, very happy, like, wholehearted, like, non-fist fighty fist fight. But what it did do that day was it opened up South Bombay audiences to this Rupa Bai bhajan, and people over there got to know that there is somebody called Rupabai. In all those years of knowing Prahlad, I had just heard, I think, one bhajan of Rupabai before. And so it's led to many interesting conversations. And Uttam Das, who's sitting to the extreme left, and Nitai Chandra Das are also very, very dear friends with whom I engage with this. And I say, no, Baul, but Baul doesn't have many women's voices. So there's another friend who's now, like, she as a woman practitioner, Reena Das Baul, she's writing some songs, and another grant from the India Foundation for the Arts enabled some of these voices to come. I did a 25 by 25, like 25 nights of streaming at midnight. This was again during the COVID era, where we got women musicians to sing. And Reena sang one of her own songs. Reena Di sang one of her own songs. And for that, I again called Prahlad, and I said, Prahlad, I need to record. He said, tell me where. I said, not you, your wife. And so we recorded Shanti ji singing Malvi folk. And later on what has happened, that was in 2020, 2021, later on what has happened is that the family has themselves started documenting not just Prahlad ji's poems, but also Shanti ji's, both folk and Kabir, which again I'm very happy. So I'll offer a couple of verses of Rupa Bai. It's not the same Bidi cigarette one, I haven't learned that one. But It is Rupa Bai, which I have learned from Devnarayan Sarolia, who is the violinist and right-hand man of Pradaji. अब थारी सेज में कट जावे चौरासी मारा बिरारे कायारा कारीगर ने ओळखो रे भाई अब थारी सेज में कट जावे चौरासी मारा बिरारे कायारा कारीगर ने ओळखो रे भाई नदिया किनारे हरियो रूखड़ो रे भाई आहा नदिया किनारे हरियो रूखड़ो रे भाई जारा झरा मारिया सा पान मारा बिरारे पेला तो झड़े वाका पानड़ा रे भाई ए जी भाई फिर जावे जड़ा मूल मारा बिरारे कायारा कारीगर रे ओळखो रे भाई अब थारी सेज में कट जावे चौरासी मारा बिरारे कायारा कारीगर रे ओळखो रे भाई ओछी तलावेड़ी में बुगड़ा घना रे भाई वी तो अवसर आया हंस मारा बिरारे ओछी तलावड़ी में बुगला घना रे भाई वी तो अवसर आया हंस मारा बिरारे मती तो कर रे तलई गर्व रे भाई जहाँ सरवरवा हंस मारा बिरारे कायारा कारीगर ने ओळखो रे भाई अब थारी सेज में कट जावे चौरासी मारा बिरारे कायारा कारीगर ने ओळखो रे भाई बाई रूपा किया बेनती रे भाई close this evening, at least the performance part of it, I want to ask you all, and this is a room full of amazing people, my goodness, feminist icons, scholars. I want to ask you, what is the first women's song that we usually hear? Can anyone shout out? Yes, thank you. It's so refreshing to hear that as the first answer. I can't tell you how many, like. So, the lullaby is, but we never think of that as a song, no? We've, like, how long will it take for us to. Yeah, how long would it take for us to really acknowledge the lullaby as a song? So most of our family then sings, and perhaps now we have many more composers in our mothers and grandmothers and families. So, as a closing, I'd like to offer this lullaby. It's a lullaby for a child of war, and this comes actually from a YouTube recording, I can be honest. The first hearing of it was from a YouTube recording. Because me and a friend, Shani Shekhar, who do a project called Road of the Wild Lily, which chronicles songs between India and Persia and Greece and all of these regions. We were looking for songs in the region, and we stumbled upon this. And then when I got to hear the deeper histories of this song, it moved me. For instance, I was singing this song in Europe once as part of a performance. It was just me on stage, something like this. And suddenly, it was a room full of people who had been displaced, refugees, people in exile. And suddenly, I felt like nobody was breathing. Like there was a collective gasp. And I'm like, what happened? I saw a round of frantic texting. And then a flood of people, some 5 or 10 people entered, like about 5 minutes later. And towards the end of that performance, somebody said, how do you know Mahawash? Because Ustad Farida Mahawash is the person whose recording we picked it up from. And she said, how do you know Mahawash? And I said, I actually don't know Mahawash. I would love to know Mahawash, but I don't know Mahawash. She said, Mahawash is a treasure. She's a national icon. She's somebody who has given us hope. And so I offer this lullaby as a sign of hope. I also cannot possibly claim to be singing a feminist archive and be the only person sitting on stage with a spotlight. So really, I'm going to invite like the feminists as the collective. It can't be. Yeah, I can take some headline shots, but that's fine. It is really the collective. It's our voice, and Ustad Farida Mahawash now lives in California. She lives in exile, and the female voice, as many of you all know, is not allowed in Afghanistan anymore. So I invite you to sing the chorus of this lullaby. It's very simple. In Kannada, the word is lali. Over here, it's lalo. And it's very simple, and I just invite you to sing it with me so we can collectively fill this room with sound and hope, and maybe take it back, and if there's any children at home, sing it to them, or if, just pass it out around in the world. This comes with blessings of many Afghani friends who later on said, no, please sing this. Like, sing this, take it out into the world, like we need this song. So, here's inviting you all to sing Lalo. So she says, oh child, I know that the injustice of winter is beginning, but try and sleep. I know that there's no food and medicine, but just for today, will you try and sleep? And then the poet goes on to say, if you do get through this injustice, and one day become the leader of this great nation, if one day you have your own troops, oh child, don't repeat this injustice on others. Be patient, for Khuda is merciful and fair, and Khuda solves problems. How could Khuda be unaware of your own? the story will come to an end, oh child, oh Afghan child. But till then, try and sleep. Try and sleep tonight.
Hello everyone. Thank you Shruti for that wonderful performance and for making us all part of it as well, taking us through the journey, your narration, your music. Thank you so much. As we transition into the next part of the session, where Shruti will be in conversation with Tejaswini Niranjana, I would like to quickly introduce her. Tejaswini Niranjana is Director, Center for Asian Studies, Geetam University, India. Her books include Mobilizing India, Women, Music and Migration Between India and Trinidad, and Musicophilia in Mumbai, Performing Subjects and the Metropolitan Unconscious, both published by Duke University Press. She is the co-producer of 3 documentary films related to music and the curator of Saath Saath, the India-China Music Collaboration Project. Her book, citing translation, history, post-structuralism, and the colonial context, has impacted a wide range of fields from anthropology and history to post-colonial studies. She is also an award-winning translator, most recently awarded with the National Translation Prize for Fiction by the American Literary Translators Association. Thank you so much, Tejaswini, for agreeing to do this conversation. Thank you.
Sure, you're still all in the thrall of this amazing, electrifying performance. So it's a big shift to move to talking in words, but Shruti had already put in so many words into the performance that I don't feel too bad asking her to add a few more. So we'll jump right away into the questions. I have a few, and then we'll open up to the audience. So I'd like to begin this conversation by asking her if she performs in so many different places, as we know, as her CV demonstrated, what makes it different, or does it make it a difference to her to be performing after an event like the Feminist Archiving event? So some thoughts on that, Shruti.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that question. And like I said, it's a great privilege to be performing for in this room, and a great responsibility as well. It's impossible to capture, capture is also such a bad word, but it's impossible to sort of represent all stories, but one hopes that there's a little bit of that a little bit of the intent comes through in the performance. And I think the intention of the conference. Also, I think music is such a, I think music really can build bridges when sometimes we are fragmented, and we are living in times that are in difficult times. And I think music helps unite and allows us to reflect and get some perspective. I think I'd like to hope. That's my hope as a musician. But also it's really a privilege to be performing in this room, because I like the same song would not sound the same in a different space. It's so charged by the space and the people that inhabit the room, that inhabit the voice. And this is definitely very, very special, because we've been talking also. It's been talking for 1.5 days. So I hope that it can be a little bit of a release as well.
Thank you, Shruti. So framing your work within the context of feminist archiving practice, as I think we tried to do, as Geeta tried to do by inviting you to this, would you say something about how the performing archive is by its very nature selective? Because you could have sung any of 1,000 or 2,000 songs. You chose these. So could you say something about the process of selection of what you sang today?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to get different voices to be heard. Also to allow different voices to come through my body. Forget representing any, big conference or anything. I'm trying to, first and foremost, trying to represent this very complicated individual that's over here. For instance, like the choice of singing in English, I would never have done that a few years ago. I was very apologetic about the fact that I have grown up in, learning to speak in English and I think in English. And I was ashamed of that for the longest time. And now I'm learning to be a little kinder to myself, saying that, hey, I mean, it's not, I didn't have any say in what language I learned to sing and talk in. And I think in these times we often tend to get very apologetic for a lot of things that sort of just come to us. And yes, it's good to be conscious and aware. And so I sang in English. I sing Zanabai because she's my absolute favorite poet. The choice of song I grappled with. Geeta knows in the morning I said I'm singing a different one, and there's about 10 of Zanabai that I would love to pull out. I'd love to sing all 10 and make you all sit here till 9 o'clock. But again, it felt representative of that era, and something about Doitsa Padar. Of course, it's so striking in translation. You cannot forget it. If you hear Doitsa Padar, then you know you've heard it. There's a before Doitsa Padar and an after Doitsa Padar. You're not the same person, because it sheds a different perspective on what feminism or what the female voice in India might have been, whatever, over here in the 13th century, 800 years ago. So there are these sort of landmark poems. And while I don't want to fall into the trap of doing the landmark poems over and over again, because even that's one kind of trap, and we've all been talking about, again, which stories get to make it to the main stage, which is why I sang a Rupa Bai, where she's just saying, okay, look at your body. That's not a headline composition in any way. It doesn't make big waves as a translation, but it is, and it's something that I've learned. And so I just try to look at the overall thing and say, okay, what might be. But Lalo is a favorite. Lalo is, I have not found another song quite like Lalo yet. So I hope that, it touched something.
Thank you. So I'd like to ask you now about the practice of building like a sonic archive. We had some discussion about that in the morning as well. Yeah, the practice of building a sonic archive, and how your kind of practice contributes to building such an archive. So in connection with that, I want to ask you, would you emphasize the perpetuation of song through performance? Or is it pedagogy, passing on the song, teaching it, preserving it, which is more important, or do you balance both? So these are a couple of questions.
Yeah, I'll answer the second one first, and I think it's a mixture of both, and I think this is where work with the community also comes in. And when I say community, I mean different communities that have been stakeholders of these songs, because anyone who has worked on the ground in a rural area knows that everything is changing after, say, 2020, and with cell phones coming in much more rapidly, and everyone's comfortable, and of course that we all know it comes with a blessing and a curse. But what is really happening is the sort of 20s and below, which till that point were actually singing their songs, suddenly have access to. So I go into rural Bengal, and people are listening to BTS, for instance, which is great. I mean, fantastic that BTS has made its way into rural Bengal, but it's also then what happens to the songs of your foremothers and your forefathers. And that's really been the big question. And my first instinct was to say, okay, I'm going to record everything. And so I started going with a camera, and there are projects that have done that brilliantly. I'm not one of those people who can archive and document beautifully. Many people, including Ajab Sheher, including like now Amrit Pyala, Dream Journey. There are a few like sonic archives who do that, who are capturing this particular moment in history, because we know that there is a turn. My method is not that. My method is to sit with these song practitioners, crib a little, say everything is disappearing. And then it's like, okay, now what? And I think I started it because, like, from that little picture, like, I'm in my mid-30s, and I don't want to be the only person singing these songs when I'm in my 60s, if I make it there. I really who will listen anymore? And I think there's such deep wisdom in these songs, and I think a lot of people on the ground are recognizing that and knowing that. And so many interesting things are happening. Of course, I'm teaching a bunch of urban people also with more privilege and to sing these songs, but also how to sing these songs. It's not about, oh, you pick out a Kabir, uproot it from the context of the land, sing it, take it into a pop band, go do the festival circuit in Singapore and UK and US and come back, without ever turning back to look at the source communities. And that's happened. That's happened so often. People are so used to it. In these communities, people are immune to it. So when I started going, say, to Bengal or to Malwa, everyone assumed that I was, again, one more person who would come, pick 3, 4, 5 songs, go out. But no, one has to go back, engage, see what is happening. Also, when I curate spaces for musicians to perform, it's my usual thing is, I say, don't do the headline songs. Because everywhere there's the 2, 3, 5, and especially in this era of like instant hits, viral videos, everything, everyone knows 2 songs of Kabir. In this room, I'm sure most of you know 2 songs of Kabir. I'm pretty sure we all know the same songs. If you know only 2 songs. But then what about the third? What about the fourth? What is the larger discourse that's happening? So like I'm trying to do multiple things at once in the sonic archives, both on the land where I'm not going with a camera, just getting people saying, hey, I'm interested in what you have to say beyond that headline 2 songs. And that's made a whole host of difference, because people are like, oh, you actually want to listen? I said, yes, I actually want to listen. And so now there's a running joke, especially in Bengal. They're like, okay, when Shruthi is coming, like, we have to go and look at our books and see what we've not done, because she will ask for something new. So there's this whole, and that has been, that's been very liberating. And these conversations have been very liberating, both in the community, in different communities. We've been recording early on in my song circle. It started off again as a pandemic era thing. Somebody said, please record. And I said, what do you mean record? I said, I'm just singing every day. I'll sing for 10 more days. Ho gaya. That's it. They said, no, record. Now that has become, and we've had, you've been there in the song circle once when Rutuja Lad came. We've had like probably more than 6 days a week for 5 years. You all do the math. In the first year was 7 days a week. 1 hour of singing. In the written archive, there's about 500 plus songs. Community translates it. There are people who contributed. There are guest musicians, Uttam Dash, Pralaji, Rutuja, many other musicians have come, sung in those archives. So there's an online thing that's building up, but there's also this intentionality, the setting up of a space where people are just allowed to sing beyond their super hit viral Gana 1, 2, 3. And so I think the mixture of that, and there's audience prepping, because the people who come to this song circle are mostly urban people who had no connection to songs and land before this. But now there's okay, I want to know this artist. And so there's been conversations with urban and rural communities cutting across many barriers, and an engagement with these types of conversations. And I don't know if I'm articulating it okay, but I'm just saying that there's lots of things happening simultaneously.
Shruthi, you brought up the song circle. It's an amazing quasi-institution, shall we call it? Yeah. In reference to that, I know that Geeta was very interested in this question of the OVs, the invisible OVs, the disappearing OVs. So if you could say something about that. And how do you see the role of the song circle in carrying forward different kinds of musical genres?
So I'll answer this in a tangential way, okay? Yesterday when we sang, and that's why I didn't show up at registration, if anyone's wondering. So we meet 9 to 10 in the mornings. And so yesterday, there were, in our song circle, there were 4 songs that came. 1 community song, one song of Muktabai is composed by my mother, one song of Muktabai is composed by another person in our song circle, Dipanjali Deka, who's an Assamese singer-songwriter. And one song of Muktabai is composed by me. And and then somebody pointed out, they said, oh, today is Community Composition Day. And so this morning when I sat in the circle, I posed a question, because we are meeting next month in Pune, and we're meeting at the time of the Wari specifically. And we're going to sing all of these alternate songs during the Wari. When everyone is singing Jnanoba and Tukaram, we will also sing Jnanoba and Tukaram, but in addition we will sing Zanabai, we will sing Sheikh Muhammad, we will sing Eknath and Tukaram's Allah songs. And I said, hey, I said, I have a problem. I said, I've been wanting to compose these beautiful Vitthal Abhangs of this Warkari Santa called Sheikh Muhammad, who now very few people sing. I have not found it on the, I have not found a person who sings Sheikh Muhammad songs. And I said, I've been holding on to this dream for 4 years and nothing's happened. I said, can we make it a community endeavor? So after, I'm going to get out of this meeting, Mama sent me a few clips, a few photos of the book where Sheikh Muhammad's Vitthal Abhangs are written. And we're going to put it up on the community WhatsApp group so that people can compose it. Okay, this is just to say, this is now, 5 years after we've begun the song circle. But really, I think singing in community has liberated me. One is, again, I enjoy being the headline performer. For all my mockery of shots like this, I enjoy it. We're all narcissistic beings, musicians. But I really believe that if the community isn't there to hold it, and I mean that in many different ways. Now you'll say, is the community urban, rural, what is it? I'd say it's everyone. Like if Praladji wasn't on board with my singing Kabir, I won't be singing Kabir. If I didn't have those conversations with Uttam Dash and Reena Di, we wouldn't have the richness of thought and wisdom and all of these archives that we do now. And I think it's living, it's breathing in many different ways, because one is there's a group of urban people singing it, but also because of the fact that we are singing it, something about that act seems to legitimize the singing for the next generation, who otherwise were like, okay, Baba is singing something or Mama is singing something. But now it's like, oh wait, why are this bunch of people from Bombay and Bangalore interested in this thing? And and because we are repeatedly engaging with communities, it's not a one-off. It's not like you come and you sing and you go. Like now, when there were a lot of communities a lot of musicians that we have in the Machan group on the border, and so like we were like, okay, we will fundraise and. And there's no institution. Like quasi-institution is probably the right word, because I'm not an institutions person, but yeah, it's a lot of work happening.
Maybe on that note of emphasizing the collective over the individual, which has been the spirit of the Feminist Archiving project that we've been discussing for the last 2 days. Maybe on that note, we should open up to audience questions. We're running late, so I'm not sure how much time we have. But surely we can take a couple of questions.
Hello, Shruthi. Yes, first of all, you have a very rich and beautiful voice. And you have shown that you're very versatile in choosing songs and appreciating songs. Yeah, the music, I think you also demonstrated that it reaches people and connect easily. But I was just curious, because you did the Carnatic music also so beautifully. Why you had remarked that you may not want to stay in Carnatic? I'm just curious to know.
Oh, because it's a casteist and very gendered space, and I don't want to engage in that space.
Yeah, thank you, Shruthi. That was wonderful performance and wonderful listening to your voice and the way the audience was almost engulfed into the performance that you did. I don't have a question, but I was more curious to know, because you are trained in Carnatic and as you mentioned, and then you are singing, Kabir music. In what ways does it influence, or it influences the Kabir music itself? Because if one looks into this folk practice of Kabir singing, there's a very plain kind of a rhythm, like it's not floating. I can't produce that rhythm at the moment, but I saw that there was a certain high note and low note, and then there was a flow to the kind of music, the way you were singing the Kabir. So do you think that question of influence of Carnatic was there in the folk Kabir that you were singing? And if you can reflect more on it, if it influences or if it doesn't, how?
I mean, I think it's there in the body, and I can deny it and say I've unschooled, but it's still there in the body. That imprint doesn't go away. But to another point, I will say that some of the Kabir songs that I've heard, Mahesha Ramji, Praladji, they have some of the most complex, incredible rhythm work, and all of it without formal training. So it just took a different lens from me to be able to see it. In fact, one song of Mahesha Ramji's, it took me, I think, 6 years to learn, because every time I would listen to it and say, I'm going to sing it now in performance. It never. So I think it's just the lens. Like I used to think of myself as very musically educated, and then I'm trying to unlearn a whole lot. So yeah, the imprint is there in the body, but I would gently disagree on the complexity of melodies and rhythms, for sure. There's a lot of nuance and complexity. No, yeah, absolutely. But I must also just say that there's a lot of like musical play and depth. It need not necessarily come from a classical lens, but it's there.
Sridhar, you go first, and then the person in the back.
Shruthi, this was absolutely brilliant. And I can't believe that 10 years ago I sat alongside you and even tried singing with you. So, but it's really stunning. I had a very quick question. Do you have any idea of the dates of Rupabai?
Probably 17th, 18th century.
Okay, thanks.
Question in the back.
Hello, Shruti. It was lovely, and it was really soulful and touching, and especially the last part, Olalu, and the way that you also interacted and engaged the audience. So congratulations on that. So I have two questions. One is, are these tunes preserved? Because it's been coming on, and I know one may not be alive for that long, but are there portions that are preserved across different eras and across different communities? One. And the other one, are there observations that come up in the themes of these poems or the songs across different era? Like women of that generation, what were the themes that they were singing upon? And then with time, have you made these observations?
Why don't you ask at the same time?
So my question was actually very related. If you take folk songs, Kannada, most of them we don't know who the poet, right? Because they have been there, and you can make out whether who has written, a woman or a man, based on the content and the way things are expressed. But what has prevailed versus what may have lost, right? Could be also is an indication of to what extent the rebellious nature of the songs versus submissive nature of the songs, which are appealing versus, and based on that, can we sort of work out the various different periods in which, there has been these kind of things are actually promoted, right? When, for example, like Sufi type, and in Kannada, like, Purandaradasa, Kanakadasa, and some of them came around the same time. That was, there was promoted actively, irrespective of what they were talking about. Kanakadasa and Purandaradasa are completely different versions, because they come from different socio-economic background, and accordingly they were expressing their devotion. but both were accepted, very proudly being sung now by almost all the famous artists to even earlier days too. So I just wanted to know, can we sort of work out what are the period in which rebellious voice was actually actively promoted and encouraged?
What some lovely questions. Let me try and say. So all of the I can speak to the Varkari Sampradaya literature the most because that's the area in which I've worked the most. But over there, like you see in Zanabai's, there's one poem which I actually wanted to sing today, where she says, "Are विठ्या विठ्या मूळ मायेच्या कार्ट्या तुझी रान रंडकी झाली जन्म सावित्री चुडाल्याली तुझे गेले मढे तुला पाहून काळ रडे उभी राहुनी अंगणी शिव्या देत दासी जणी." Standing in the I'll just translate the last line because I don't have the bandwidth or the language to translate any of the other lines. But she in the beginning, in the end, she says, "Standing in the courtyard, Zani swears at," and basically the implication is she's swearing at Vitthal. This is also, I sang this in the Zanabai temple, and I sang it with great trepidation because I'm like, people, but everyone knew. All of this resistance, rebellion, anti-institution thinking is embedded in the Bhakti and Sufi traditions. It's part of its nature, which is why I see what Bhakti tradition is being represented as now. And I have a lot of sorrow in my heart because it was inherently rebellion, documented like this. For her to say, "I become your whore, Keshava, I'm coming now to wreck your home." You have Bhaddakundalakesha in possibly the 6th century or something, and her story is that she fell in love with this man and who was a robber, and then he tried to kill her, so she killed him, and she roamed around the world and then found the Buddha. We know her history. I find it magical and beautiful that we know Bhadda Kundalakesha's history. How many her stories of women do we know who are complicated and nuanced and have not had an easy path? Also, I would like to say that very often we don't know if it's also a man or a woman, because if you look at Baba Bulle Shah's verses, or if you even look at the bowls of Bengal, there is people inhabit the feminine to write. So this feminine voice, or if you look at, and maybe you can, and others in the room can speak to it better, but Kshetraya's poems, like was Kshetraya or was Kshetraya a pen name under which women wrote, or was Kshetraya a man who took all these poems and published it as his own? Like, we don't know. There are theories around it. So I would say the gender is not clear, but I would say rebellion is embedded right through. Whether we look at, we have access to 12th and 13th century text, and then before that I only know the Therigatha. But even Andal in the Tiruppavai, which is more commonly sung, and that is the Andal that's sung every December in Margari. That's very nice. And the Nachya Tirumuri is completely scandalous for the mainstream, because it's all about her personal desire, and there's so much eroticism and romance and love and desire embedded in it. That's Andal. And I'm guessing we have examples where we still have access. I think it's been expressed right through. Now I have, like in the 20th century, Reena Das Baul, who is one of the people I was mentioning, is writing songs on menopause. And she's writing all of that. So I think we just have to know where to look and hope that the sources are there. Speaking to your thing on if the tunes are there, I don't know. So there's a few reasons for this. We don't know if the original tunes are preserved, because the Varkari community is sort of a collective community that has emerged. It's not sort of hereditary. It's not, that you follow this one saint and you sing. So in that community, in that collective, what is original and what has been lost, we probably don't know. I would say it's probably been lost. And the reason I make this theory is that now when you see the Varkari tradition, all the songs are in a 4/4 rhythm. Whereas if you hear the OVs, and this speaks to the lost OVs in general of the women, not just the Abhangs, which are also OVs, when you hear a project like the Grind Mill project, and you hear the recordings of women who are singing, which are probably the ones that have been orally transmitted, and it was recorded in the 70s and the 80s, then you begin to hear actually very complex, nuanced rhythms, very, very complex, fairly ambiguous scales and tunes, which are not the 4/4 sort of mega hit abhangs that have carried forward in the 20th century. Which is why I also take some liberty of breaking form and not doing everything in a 4/4 rhythm and all, because I think historically things have morphed and changed. And also Maharashtra has been industrialized. A lot of songs were recorded. We had Bhimsen Joshi and others recording in the 50s, 60s, which meant a lot of homogeneity came in, etc., etc.
I think we have time for one last question.
Yeah.
That's yours. Yeah.
Hi, Shruti, thank you for this beautiful performance. While I was very moved by your performance, I would like to, kind of commend other artists like you. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Bindu Malini and Vasu Dikshit and MD Pallavi and all. People who have moved away from the mainstream, who are all very trained, like you said, in traditional music, but have moved away and found their own path. I think this is also because of you're trying to find your philosophy in these songs, and you're trying to, I'm not sure whether you're trying to send out that philosophy into the world. So through these performances, is that one of your hopes, that you end up educating the public behind the philosophy of these songs, and has that been received in a similar way by your audience, whether it's in the urban setup or in the community? Do you see that happening? Is that the idea behind singing these songs, that, these are my sensitivities? I wish and hope that the world would see and, kind of aligned with these thoughts and feelings, because it's sad that from ages that's been kind of, most of these songs have a very similar thread of thought. It's sad that to this day it's not gone down into society. A lot of the times it's still a song. The thought behind the song, centuries back, and now the progressiveness then should have actually made it more progressive now. As a society, we should have become more progressive. But do you think that we still listen to them in a very commercial aspect? And do you think it's your responsibility as a musician to take this philosophy and spread it around in a very subtle way? I'm sure you don't go around,
I think I've always secretly wanted to be the leader of a cult, and this is the way I do that.
I see that in all of you, actually. I mean, I see that in a Bindu Malini performance where she's like, immersed, but at the back of her mind, she's like, do you get what I'm singing? Do you get what I'm singing?
Yeah, I think today the dress goes along with that intention. But yeah, I mean, I'll to speak to your point, like 100% yes, because like one looks at where we're going as a world and wonders what we can do, and at some point that has become the path. But very recently, in fact, last week I was in Alandi, which is Jnaneshwar's birthplace, and I've been going there since I was a kid. But again, being somebody who kind of lives out of that suitcase, nobody really knows me, and nobody, I don't really belong. And so I said, okay, and usually I've always gone there and offered an abhang or two at the temple. And then this time they was like, no, you should arza patra dya office madhe, and then you have to come back. I said, mala arza patra nahi dyacha. I don't want to give a permission letter. Like this is the Varkari Sampradaya. This is a movement for the people. I just want to offer an abhang. No. So then we sang the Pasayadan. before anyone could stop us. I said, you're not allowing us in the temple. So there's, within the complex, there's a sanctum sanctorum. They said, you can't sing in the sanctum sanctorum. So then I said, okay, you're not inside, I will sit outside. Then the guards came and blew their whistles, and I thought they're going to throw us out. Several people came and said, oh, you don't bother about the guards. They don't know that God is everywhere. And then we went outside because the guards were blowing the whistles so much that we couldn't think. And then we went outside and sang Sokha Mera, who is a Dalit poet who wrote about not being allowed into the temple. And there people gathered. Again, then there was one person who said that, you don't bother about these authorities, you come. And he got us chai afterwards, and he said, you come have a conversation. Don't worry, I'll handle all of this. So I think that everywhere there are pockets, and I'm just seeing these layers of nuance and complexity, and I'm trying to hold all these stories together. But yes, next Janam cult leader, for sure.
Thank you all for coming here, for singing with Shruthi, and to Shruthi for singing to all of us. Yeah? Thank you, NCBS. Thank you, MAP. Thank you, Feminist Archives, Feminist Archivists, and thank you, Geeta.
We're not done with the thank yous yet, so a minute more. Thanks, Tejaswini, for steering this conversation, for the questions, for your reflections in the last couple of days. Shruthi, thanks so much for the music and also for your camaraderie and for your humor, if I may. Shashi, thanks so much to you and the director's office for enabling so much of what we've been doing the last couple of days, so really, thank you. I noticed Sheila also come by, so it really means a lot when sort of people from across the campus turn up for these events. I'm speaking, of course, on behalf of the entire organizing team, so just a shout out to the organizers, our colleagues at the archives at NCBS and the Museum of Art and Photography for making this possible. There are so many people who sort of obviously go into the making of events like this. Vaishnavi, thanks so much to you and the meetings office. The Dean's office for steering and facilitating access to these spaces. The architecture team and the lab kitchen who work behind the scenes in sort of steering all the furniture that you see on campus in such a seamless fashion. The IT team, the instrumentation team, thanks so much for all the work that you've done, which just goes largely unnoticed. The security for steering us into these spaces and ensuring that we actually manage to get this done. The catering and hospitality for absolutely fantastic food. And so thanks so much to all of these folks who've come together, and I really wish the last note today was song and not my words, but thanks so much. Safe travels to all of you, wherever you're going. Bye.